Welcome everyone to the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor, and unfortunately I come to you today with some pretty unfortunate circumstances. It is Thursday, July 20th, 2017, and I have the very sad news of and obviously by the time this goes out, people are going to know, but as we record this, we have found out that Chester Bennington of Linkin Park and formerly of Stone Temple Pilots has passed away. He was found in his home in Los Angeles. He had committed suicide by hanging himself. Ironically enough, today is also Chris Cornell's birthday, and we all know what happened to Chris Cornell a few months ago. And unfortunately, it seems like these celebrity deaths have been happening so often that I haven't really been doing reaction podcasts for each of them. I guess, these happen so often, but for some reason, well, for a lot of reasons actually, I felt the need to do something and to talk about it, because certainly the circumstances around Chester Bennington's death is very even more tragic than I would dare to say than some of the other musical icons we've lost in recent months and in recent years. So I definitely have a history with being a Linkin Park fan, but before I get into that, I invited a few friends of mine to be on this. First of all, one of my regulars on my movie reviews. Haven't really had him much discussing music, but I know obviously he's a big music fan. Seamus Pautz.
Yeah. I don't want to say happy to be here, obviously under the circumstances, but yeah, just this kind of hit me in a big way. So I'm glad to have talk it out in some way.
Of course, and coming on the show for the first time from Jacksonville, he is the host of Rock 98.9, an internet radio station, and of the Sonic Assault internet radio show and podcast, I believe. Brian Paul.
I echo the sentiments. Not exactly thrilled to be here, but it is nice to be here, Jack. Thanks for having me on, and bring a little Jacksonville point of view to this.
Absolutely, and finally, certainly one of my most visited podcast guests in the history of my show. He is the bass player of Falling in Reverse, and is also known for his time in the band Black Tide. Please welcome Zakk Sandler.
Yeah, thanks, man. Like you guys said, to say happy to be here is, it's just unfortunate that we kind of have to, that we're here again, honestly. And I know I've, been hearing it all day on this tour, just hearing the impact of everybody. It's kind of crazy to hear, a voice that literally everybody on this tour, every musician I know has been listening to, since the 90s, since the late 90s.
Right.
And it's it definitely, this was a huge shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly don't think any of us saw this one coming. It's easy to say, looking back in hindsight, looking at maybe some of the lyrics that Linkin Park has put out over the years, like, and I've kind of said this similar to Soundgarden when Chris Cornell passed away, like they weren't necessarily like a party, like good time kind of band. They dealt with some serious subject matter, but you just, and I guess looking back on his life, he had issues with depression and I guess with domestic abuse when he was growing up, and I guess drug and alcohol issues. I'm not sure of the exact details, and I don't want to necessarily speculate what role any of this had in his death, since it just happened today. That's really not what this show is about. I definitely wanted to get everyone together because the circumstances behind his passing are something that we've seen happen before, and I think there are a lot of people out there who get misconceptions about the implications of suicide and depression, and people have all their opinions about it, and people are going to make their judgments, but it's just there's nothing. There's nothing convenient about the way he passed away, and there's certainly nothing I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. I'm having a hard time finding the words to say. Guys, if you want to jump in here.
I mean, we were discussing this earlier today, a few of us out in this camp. I think, and a lot of fans will look at this whole situation a little differently than a lot of people who knew him and people who are in positions similar to his. And I know already there was some blabbermouth thing out there that like Head from Korn had, kind of looked down on the fact that he had taken his own life.
I'd seen that, yeah.
But one of the things that I think a lot of music fans in general, as well as fans of Chester's, they're looking at it like, oh, well, he had everything he could possibly want. He had all the money, he had the fame, the cars, whatever. But at the end of the day, none of that will fill that actual void that's in you. If anything, it's just masking it. And it gets to a point where, none of that matters. Him having everything that he had has nothing to do with the state of his mental health. And I'd read a lot about his addiction over the years, and at one point a couple of years back, his wife and his band had an intervention with him and stuff. And it's just tough to see that he couldn't work through whatever he was dealing with. And I know that he had been, because he was very outspoken about his relationship with Chris Cornell. And I think a lot of that kind of, had a big effect on him and a lot of his life. And, you get into a dark place, with anything in life, and that can happen. And who knows, maybe had he just, made a phone call beforehand and been upset, or hadn't been alone, this wouldn't have happened. But,
sure.
if he, he still needed to speak up, because I'm sure plenty of people do ask him how he's doing all the time. I don't doubt that happens often, but I think that, a lot of this does go back to the fact that he didn't speak up when, maybe he should have.
Definitely. Zakk, I know, obviously you've certainly been, if anyone could speak to that experience, it would be you. But had you ever met Chester in all the years in your career? Had you guys had any interaction?
Not necessarily. I know I've been in the same room as him, maybe twice in my life. I never had any real interaction with the guy. I wish I had, because, growing up I was a fan, and I was one of those fans who now heard one of their last singles and was just like, this is different. But I went back and listened to it today and listened to the lyrics. It was just like, oh my God. It was the song Heavy. When I heard it, I was like, I was like, I'm not into this. Now I read those lyrics and I'm just like, this is haunting.
It really is. Brian, obviously you being in the industry, being in radio, had you run across the Linkin Park guys at all?
I hadn't had the chance to. We've covered Welcome to Rockville up here in Jacksonville for a couple of years now, and of course they've not been on the billing. But just my observation of the industry as a whole, because our station, we really focus a lot more on the local and independent stuff, and we try to give a lot more credence to those stories, but we do pay attention to the national scene, as it develops. And one of the things that struck me about Chester in recent years is his kind of overtly aggressive critique of the fans, and how recently he was, very outspoken about calling fans out on the carpet for thinking that they had gone too pop, or, they had gone, very sellout. And it seemed to me that it was coming from more of a place of anger and hurt, more so than from a creative standpoint. I was a big fan of the Hybrid Theory album when it came out. I think it was obviously the cornerstone of why Linkin Park did what they did. They crossed so many angles, musically, that it kind of gave rise to and credence to bands like Limp Bizkit, the whole rap metal scene as it came out in the early 2000s, and people had kind of pigeonholed them as this type of band, and Meteora sort of setting the stage for a crossover of sorts. But as time went on, Chester seemed to be much more aggressive towards the fans that called him out. And it didn't seem like someone who was really pointing out more of a creative difference. It was someone who was genuinely angry. And, I mean, I don't know the language barrier on your show, but on mine we could drop it. But, he's basically calling the fans pussies. And what person does that who's thinking from a creative standpoint? He seemed like there was something inside him that was, it wasn't spoken to. And he really was crying for help. And sadly, nobody really saw that. But I find this whole situation somewhat peculiar because I followed Stained for the longest time and the darkness of Aaron Lewis's lyrics. All of the from the their Chapter 5 album was supposed to be more of a kind of a hearkening back to the angst-ridden Stain, whereas 14 Shades of Grey was supposed to be a little lighter because he had just had a kid, and then he went country all of a sudden. But you don't see guys like Aaron Lewis, who wrote a lot of angst-ridden lyrics and were kind of writing from really dark places, discuss this issue. And Linkin Park didn't seem to have that image until very recently. I think this really comes from a place where Chris Cornell's death impacted him much more deeply than anybody realized, but nobody really took the time to say, hey man, are you really okay? And it opens up a whole can of discussion about how we handle mental illness in this country. It's very sad, as a whole, and my heart grieves for his children right now. I mean, the kid had six kids, with 2 different spouses, but still, I mean, those children are now fatherless, and I'm pretty sure they're not really understanding why. And there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions about this going forward. And we only have the shadow of his lyrics that, really give us any indication, why. And it's really dark, and it's a heavy subject to talk about right now in the midst of so many wonderful things going on the rock.
Absolutely. And you touched on a lot of points, Brian, and I certainly have a few thoughts and theories of that of my own. But Seamus, I wanted to sort of direct this over toward you now. I know that obviously you and I have been friends for a little bit. We usually get together to talk about movies and comic books and stuff like that. You and I haven't really talked a lot about necessarily having taste in music or similar taste in music. But I saw that on your social media earlier today saying that this one hit you particularly hard. Have you always been a Linkin Park fan? Can you tell us about your experience with that?
Well, ever since I really got into music, there were a couple of bands. I mean, I was a teenager in the early 2000s, so I was around when Linkin Park. Well, obviously they had their start earlier than that, but like I believe their album Minutes to Midnight was one of my favorite albums growing up, and different ones like that. Obviously, I listened to Hybrid Theory and Meteora on repeat a bunch, and so I could just it's just funny because I was kind of sharing that same sentiment about the lyrics. I was going back today, just kind of out of just kind of compulsively just going through all of it, just checking out the lyrics, and just especially I did listen to that song Heavy, and it is very haunting. But it's not just that one. Several of them, like the song, just
leave
out the rest, man.
Yeah,
that one's. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. I posted
Little things give you away.
Yeah, just different ones like that are just they're a little just. I don't even know if they're necessarily hints, but they're definitely just indications of somebody who's going through a lot of internal struggles. And as somebody who has struggled with depression in the past, I'm not trying to like make this about me or anything, but like it just you can tell there are tells, and it's just like it's very saddening that nobody maybe took him aside and talked to him about it, or maybe just, everybody likes to pretend that everything's okay. Nobody likes to deal with issues, and if somebody had maybe just talked to him and said, "Hey, is everything okay?" Or maybe they did. I don't know, and that's the thing. We just don't know, and I don't want to assume or anything like that. It's just the tragedy of it. My nerves are still raw about it, just because normally I don't enjoy posting things about like celebrities who have died. I mean, obviously, it's sad whenever anybody dies. It is. But
Absolutely.
I guess just this one held just kind of a tender spot in my heart, just because I did grow up with their music. They were a staple they kind of defined my adolescent years and everything. So it's just seeing that happen. It just kind of made it a little too real for me.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Zakk, what was some of your first memories of Linkin Park? When did you start discovering them?
Oh man, trying to think. 99. I must have been 10, 11 years old, and that was like I was getting into heavier music then. And I remember my buddy Jason was like, "Dude, you have to listen to this record," and he brought up Hybrid Theory. And we were just like, we thought that we just discovered like the heaviest band ever. Little did I know Slayer existed, but
right.
But it was just so raw and so angry. And when you're a young teenager or going into that, you really don't have, or at least then there wasn't a lot of music to identify with for that. And Stained was kind of on the come up, so was Puddle of Mud. And all of a sudden, there were our new heroes. Like, there were our attainable heroes because they were young guys who were just angry at the world or just had this different view. And I think there was a lot to connect to it. And, I mean, still, even, listening back today to some of the songs I love, like listening to the song Crawling, mm-hmm. I'm just like, when you listen to those lyrics and you read what they are, it's like this dude has always dealt with it. But it and to kind of go back on I guess people not really taking the time to maybe see if he was okay or anything. I think there's a line with any singer in any band or any lyricist or songwriter where you got to remember people put their pain in the music, and it's not just about writing a hook. Like, him writing a great melody to saying, "Crawling in my skin, these wounds will not heal."
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's some really deep shit, and that came straight from his heart. And, he puts all of his emotions on the paper and on the tracks every time. And I think that, I think there's, what's the way to say it? I mean, I think there's that thing where you kind of have to look past what he does and what other musicians do and kind of realize that this all comes from very personal places. It's not just about entertainment.
For sure. I know he definitely didn't have the easiest life growing up. I remember you reading stories about him, I guess in his teen years, trying to get a job at a Burger King or something, and him having to skateboard there because he couldn't afford a car, and just little things like that, that I'm sure just added to what must have been some really deep-seated issues.
Yeah, but what I think is amazing is, and this is something that I think a lot of people should look at, because everybody identifies to songs and to musicians and to certain artists a certain way. That's why that's what builds a fan base, is finally hearing somebody speak to you and speak for you in some way and convey what you just don't know how to. And I think that I think that this is as horrible as it is, I think that his death kind of, and because he was such a big star, should be a big it should be a big call out to America and to the world about how we deal with mental health issues and the state that it's been in. Because if so many people are identifying with him and his words as well as others, same with Chris Cornell, I think that a lot of those people and a lot of just people in general need to kind of wake up a little more, listen a little more, pay attention a little more, love a little more. They're, especially these days, because there are so many outlets, because of social media, at no point is anybody ever actually alone. You were a phone call, a text, a tweet, an Instagram post, a Facebook, you are always right there from somebody who will fucking be there for you.
That's
Always.
absolutely right. I mean, for all the criticisms of social media, you do have some pros like that. Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better myself. Brian, do you remember where you were when you first sort of discovered Linkin Park?
I was actually at Florida State when I first heard it, and I remember hanging out with some good friends of mine, kicking back some beers, and it was not long after Hybrid Theory came out, and we rocked it almost on repeat. A good friend of ours, Nate, he was just in love with Paper Cut. And first track on the album,
Yes.
and
Oh yeah.
the guitar lead in, and it had all of the right elements to it. It had the hooks, it had the edge, it had the angst of the late '90s, and early 2000s embedded in it. And those guys were in the same arena as a lot of like it was said, the Stains, the Puddle of Muds, early Disturbed. All of that stuff that had all of this anger and just behind it. And there's so many people were able to emotionally connect to the words that were being said or sung or rapped at this point. Of course, Linkin Park had such an impact with the crossover to rap metal. And, for a little while, that was kind of the thing, a lot more spoken word or rapped lyrics, along with sung or /screamed, depending on how you look at it, and it just tore up mainstream rock at that time.
Did.
Mainstream rock radio had devoured it and basically turned it out into like arena level stuff. And you're right. You look back on the lyrics, and it's funny looking back on that particular time in my life versus the music that I was listening to. There was a lot of angst. There was a lot of sorrow. There was a lot of hurt that people were openly expressing and connecting with. And you gotta kind of look at this from this perspective now. And this is a time pre 9/11 when a lot of people were like, you know what? Screw it. I'm sad. I'm pissed. I'm angry, or whatever. The emo culture was kind of in its prime, so to speak, in that particular demographic, an age group. Right after 9/11 hit, a lot of people started becoming numb, no pun intended, of course, to their own emotions. Because people started seeing tragedy firsthand. I mean, I remember sitting on the campus of FSU, and the world went to a standstill, no matter where you were. And in the decade or so since then, people are not really willing to talk about their emotions, whether they're speaking to someone about it or expressing it artistically. It's almost like we as a society have developed this phobia of becoming one with our emotions. And I think people like Chester and Aaron Lewis at that time, and even David Drainman, we're expressing the things that we wanted to express for the longest time. And then all of a sudden that just stopped. And then everybody was more about, okay, now that we've experienced tragedy in the way that Americans weren't used to experiencing it, we can't talk about that anymore. Oh, no. We have to talk about happy things. We almost gave ourselves culturally, socially, and even musically a Prozac that we've never been able to get off the hot.
That's
and
interesting.
Since then,
I've never really thought about that.
It's true. And since then, music has become much more vapid, much more brain candy. I was actually involved in a bit of a discussion on Facebook with Zakk Sandler of Dark Summer about how hip hop has taken over radio as the primary genre of choice. There's a reason for that, because people want an escape. They don't want to deal with what they're dealing with in the sort of direct way that rock music really did at that time period. They want to listen to something that's going to kind of make them feel no pain whatsoever. So enter the Nicki Minaj's of the world, and enter the Katy Perry's, enter these people, enter this people. and I don't want to get on too much of a tangent or a rant here, but I mean, coming from the rock world like I do, and appreciating what Vertebreaker does on a daily basis when they do it.
Oh, well, thank you. This isn't about me.
I know, but still, in that community that I've seen and in that scene that I've been able to witness firsthand, these are real people that are giving real creative credence to what their art form is. Everything else in the industry is a reflection of people's willingness to stay numb and willingness to not deal directly with what's going on in their lives, personally or as a community. And I think, if anything, Chester's death should really wake people up and say, look, we've got to have a serious discussion about the state of mental health in our world. This is no laughing matter. If Chris Cornell wasn't a warning, if Robin Williams wasn't a warning, then Chester Bennington needs to be a warning. Because we've lost 3 amazing artistic talents in the last 2 or 3 years to issues that in the 90s and in the 2000s we were handling in much different ways.
Or at least if we were handling in different ways, it wasn't as reported. Look at Cobain, for example. But that's a whole other thing. Interesting you bring that up, Brian, because I feel like it's almost the numbness. It's almost like I almost feel sometimes, and again, this isn't meant to disrespect any particular era of rock music, but I almost feel like maybe that in itself is a reaction to sort of the grunge era and a lot of the darkness that particularly brought with it, and that I still think to a degree that rock music hasn't fully recovered from yet, and maybe it's. And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't have its place, because it's it's there, it's a reflection of real life, but maybe maybe rock music is just afraid to embrace both ends of that emotional spectrum a little bit. I don't know.
I think you're speaking to a good point. I think for me, I know my sort of medicinal drug of choice was Smashing Pumpkins. I'm a huge Billy Corgan fan, and his writing, actually spoke to me in a lot of ways that other music did not. And remember back in the day,
someone put some bubble wrap, on Billy Corgan. He's like the last '90s rock star we have left, for God's sake.
Yeah,
keep him safe.
He's the only one with a set of balls. Let's just say it. Call it like it is. The guy's got guts, and he sticks to his proverbial guns with damn good reason. Yeah. But people of that era, of that particular, time of music, yeah, you're right. There was a lot more sort of shameless exploration of one's emotions and the the impact that it had on people's lives.
Well, also look at other sort of lead singers of that era. Kurt Cobain, gone. Lane Staley, Andrew Wood from Mother Love Bone, Shannon Hoon of Blind Melon.
Shannon Hoon. God, you're speaking to my world right now. I mean,
it's funny that you bring up some of those particular dudes in the grunge era about all that, because you got to remember, for them, the scenes that they came from, and I think this is where there is that separation of, like you were saying, like Billy Corgan's one of those dudes who, like, he just has the balls to fucking put it out there. They came from this. Most of those dudes were like the big punk rock dudes.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what they came up on. They came up on this mentality of like, we're going for it, and that's it. I got nothing to lose. It doesn't fucking matter about tomorrow. I'm going for it. And I think for them, a lot more of those people were living in the moment. They weren't looking at, my career, or my future, or this and that. They were just like, I'm here, I'm dealing with this now, and this is how I'm dealing with it. And I think there's a mentality that comes with that and it's funny to think of that, because when you look at the old school punk rock guys who are all still around, it's because they've always had that, like, I don't give a fuck mentality. I'm doing it. I don't care who I piss off, what goes right, what goes wrong. I'll bounce back. If my record sucks, who cares? I'm just going to make another one in a year anyway. It's a little different. The machine that ran something like a bigger, I I mean, I don't want to call him a pop star because he's a rock star, but a bigger pop star like Chester Bennington, there's so much more weight behind it. It's because it's not, like, from his mentality, I think there's a lot of that. It's not just about the guys in the band. It's not just about me. It's about the machine that's behind them. And I think that adds a lot more stress and a lot more, weight to his shoulders, opposed to somebody who's just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Whatever happens, happens, and that's it.
Well, conversely, I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't mean to stumble on you there.
Oh, no. Go ahead. I was about to bring up a few other points of view, kind of getting on something else, but go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to kind of close and transition with, to that point, though, I think when you look at guys like Shannon Hoon, Blind Melon, amazing for its time. I mean, you can almost, they were kind of in the sort of that, fuck whatever mentality, but at the same time, I think they were writing from a place of, of depth, like Chester was. And I'm hearkened to the song Deserted from Blind Melon's title album. When you look at lyrics, and it's like, grab my knee and look at me and try to tell me I'll be home soon, asleep in my bed and unstoned. I'm tired of me this way.
Yeah.
And that just nails you. You're like, man, I'm really hurting right now. But Shannon somehow makes it feel better, as a result.
Yeah. Well, and it's because he puts his pain on the paper, and you can relate to it and you can listen to it. Like, I think that also just goes back to the power of what music does for people and why we're fans and why we love who we love, because they speak to us in a way that nobody else is.
One thing I want to bring up, and Brian, you had touched on this earlier. Yes, we do obviously have to have a conversation about expressing your emotions and about mental health, but it was pretty obvious that Chester was very affected by the fans' response to the latest record that they had put out. And I think that almost brings, and because we are living in a world where everyone has a voice and everyone can express what they want to do anonymously, and that means a lot of people, have knee-jerk reactions to certain things. I think, I think this is also this can also inspire a greater conversation about what it really means to be a music fan. And by this, I mean, if you claim to be a fan of a particular artist and claim to be one of the quote-unquote diehards, then I think people tend to make snap judgments when said artist makes a certain change or explores a different avenue in their career. And I'm sure a lot of people, like Metallica fans, get divided into certain camps, for example. Any band that's been around for a long time goes through different phases in their career. And my point is that if you call yourself a fan, I'm not saying that you have to support everything blindly and that you can't have an opinion. I'm saying that you should at least have enough trust in that artist to be like, okay, well, maybe what is out right now maybe is not necessarily my particular cup of tea, but I have enough faith in this artist to still be who they are and not necessarily accuse them of trying to pander to somebody and sell out or whatever, because, and certainly in the case of Chester Bennington, everything about this guy everything this guy did has always come across to me as being very earnest, very genuine. Right or wrong, whether you love it or hate it, those guys made the records they wanted to make, and that was why they had the career that they did. And I feel like if you call yourself a fan of Linkin Park, then I feel like you should have a little bit more patience and a little bit more understanding if they do decide to make a left turn here and there. That's part of my issue with people's immediately just panning, heavy when it came out and saying, oh, they've lost it.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say, in this day and age with how, because if you listen to each one of their records, every record is so fucking different.
Absolutely.
It really is. They've had a very eclectic catalog in their career, and you have entire fan bases, a massive fan base, judging 12 songs out of what, a 7-album career?
Yeah.
You're judging 12 songs on your love for a band, and you see
or just one song.
Right, right. People who hadn't even heard the rest of the record yet, and it's people who they can't grasp that this thing that they love so much has changed. But that's part of the thing about being the artist is you grow and you change, and as an artist, you would expect them to do that. That's why you love them, is you love them for their art and what they have to say and how they say it. All because they didn't have crazy distorted guitars doesn't change the content that was there. It doesn't change the lyrics.
When
it doesn't
you hear
change the
other
emotion.
musicians saying things like that blows my mind too.
I mean, because it's the truth.
Well, yeah, and I think, and from the perspective of, I guess the radio side of it, you know, it's such a fickle world we live in nowadays, where people get, you know, they get hooked on one particular thing, and they can't get off of it. You know, they stay in this little box, and I think it speaks to what's largely going on with what we consider artistic expression in our listening demographic. Regardless, is, you know, people they get hooked on one particular thing, and then as soon as an artist takes some time to, you know, expand their consciousness or go into a completely different direction from it, they're like, well, no, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. I liked you because of this, and it just kind of it bothers me for high heaven, because it's like, you know, listen, I loved the Smashing Pumpkins in the 90s. I thought the Adore album sucked, but I bought it anyway, you know, and then when the next album came after that, I still bought it because, you know, I bought in a long time ago to the whole artistic picture. But everybody for the last 10, 20 years has just been like, you know what, I like this, and that's it. You know, it's almost like everybody's become so narrow-minded when it comes to what their likes and dislikes are. It's like, you know, when we tell people to think outside the box, they're like, huh, what? Like, but there's something outside of this, huh?
It's funny because you don't see it with some other artists. Like, I think a great example is Disturbed. They've always been this just like in your face, heavy, it's going to be fast, it's going to be cool. But they put out a cover of Simon and Garfunkel, which is a huge left turn for them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of the biggest songs, not in rock, in music, in the world. It was one of the number 2 or the number 1 top-selling iTunes downloaded song for last year?
Oh, that was incredible. Yeah.
And if you think about the band that did Down with the Sickness, did Sound of Silence?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of a more drastic change.
Well, and how many
because
people
it doesn't even sound like them.
Well, how many people have commented since then about how David Draymond's voice is beautiful?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And like he
and they
really showed his
like,
baritone range in that song. Besides, you know, oh wow, you know, they actually really
that was really good.
Some beauty out of his voice, and it's amazing, you know. And
no, I was just saying, I will say that Disturbed is a little bit more diverse than people give them credit for. If you listen to their second album, Believe, the last track on that album is called Darkness, and it's just this beautiful piano ballad. And so, I just wanted to add that in as a side note. But sorry, Brian, continue.
No. I mean, no, you're spot on. You know, I mean, I think everybody, you know, has a license to, you know, expand and grow. I mean, it's like I'm saying, the mainstream music industry, and I always throw rocks at it from the mainstream albums that come out to the radio that's played, because I'm in the underground. You know, I'm in a world right now that people don't respect because, you know, I don't have a quote draw. Like, I feel like all the independent musicians in the world that are like, oh, you never have a draw. Yeah. Well, the 30,000 people a month that are listening to my station right now would disagree with you, but okay. You know, people are paying attention.
Well,
but,
congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. You know, well, you guys have, you know, in the scene in Orlando has something to do with that, because we're focusing on something that people need to hear. You know, I mean, there's more to the spectrum than what's being presented out there in the world today. But it's like I said, it goes back to the vapidness of the culture that has evolved in the last 20 years. People are only going to listen to what they're told is popular. And a lot of people were told that Chester Bennington's work was limited to hybrid theory, and that was popular. And Meteora was popular, and that was it. So when they take that turn, immediately the knee-jerk reaction is to reject it, because that's not what they were told was popular at some point. They came out with something new. They tried something different, and they got lambasted for it. And is it justice? No.
Oh, exactly. And there were people in radio who totally turned on them for that.
Yeah.
And rock radio wouldn't touch heavy.
Absolutely. But, I mean, I'm almost reminded, because I think this is just kind of human nature, to just, kind of react negatively to something we don't understand. I'm sure back in the 60s, people were, blown away when the Beatles came out with Strawberry Fields Forever, and we're like, what is this? So
it's classic.
Yeah, like that's just, it's funny that you mentioned the Beatles. It's in most art, especially music and just different art. I kind of do work in graphic design, so it's kind of the similar. If you don't experiment, if you don't try things that may or may not work, you stagnate. You become you just become stagnant, and you're not able to continue to grow as an artist. So just seeing that growth, and you see a lot of different people that are doing the same, that are kind of doing a similar thing, and you just feel like they're stagnant, and you feel like they haven't developed. So it's kind of a catch-22. In short, people don't know what they want.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Zach, you and your bandmates have run into that over the years. Falling in Reverse is a very eclectic band, and certainly you guys have done a lot of different stuff over the years.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing with fan bases, and like I said, with them and their respect to the artist and what they do, you're always going to have people who they hear something new and they're just not into it. I mean, I'm guilty of it. Before I was in this band, I'd only heard like 2 or 3 songs, and I was like, oh, that's this band, until I dug into the catalog and was like, I'm incredibly wrong, because I was basing things off of a few experiences and whatever I've read on the internet or heard. And like, I'm a fan of the band I play in. Like, if I wasn't in it and somebody played me our new record, I would go out and buy it. Like, I'm into it. But I think, with how fans react to a band shifting and changing, you do get comfortable. It's like in anything. Once you're comfortable and there's a slight difference in it, I think that it's a natural reaction to kind of be upset that it's not what you're used to. But I really, and it's going to be bad to even say this, but his response to how fans reacted to Heavy and their new record and being pissed off, I actually thought was completely justified.
Oh, me too.
I completely was like, you just called my art garbage because it's not what I've done for you in so long. Like, who the fuck are you to tell me how to do what I am doing for me as well as for you? Like,
I was right there with you, man, cheering him on. I was like, yeah, man, stand up for what you want to do. You don't owe anyone anything, and but I mean, I'm sure there was a side of him that maybe felt bad, like he was letting people down, but at the same time, it's like, they made the record they want to make. Like,
I think his feelings were hurt.
I'm sure they were. He was a sensitive guy,
Yeah.
I think there was a tremendous amount of butthurt in that statement, to be honest with you. I mean, I read it and was like, I couldn't unglue my eyes from the top of my head. But I at the same time, though, and this is, I call this into question just because I've seen the industry at large and then seen the local side of things, where people who are making the art they want to make. I wonder how much of that was actually staged. I honestly don't think that anybody in their right mind, in his particular position with his particular fame, would willingly call out the fan base to the carpet the way he did. had to have been some sort of grandstanding on the part of the label or something that elevated that to the point that it got. I can understand why he'd be perturbed to a certain sense, and because he had to have had a hand in the creative process, and of course he did. But to take it to the extreme that he did, I wonder how much of that was a reflection of the industry kind of generating the controversy that it did. It seemed to me anger, but at the same time there was a little bit of an influence.
I'd actually go as far as say that I'd be willing to bet, because I believe I think they were a Warner band. I could be wrong. I'm willing to bet that their A&R guy and everybody at the label was fucking freaking out when he did it. And I think that he was in a position where it really doesn't matter what anybody says, because he's going to sit there and go, I make you all this money. You don't do nearly what I have to do. This is my band. If we want to fucking break up tomorrow, we're done. If I want to bury this shit into the ground, I will. I think it really came from a place where he was like, I'm fucking tired of it. I'm going to say what I want to say, because who gives a shit? Because you know what? At the end of the day, that record still sold a stupid number their first week, and they still had a number one song. It didn't matter what he said about old fans, because he knew that he wrote a great record.
Well, there you go, and I think that also says a lot to like how people always tend to default to the argument of like, oh, they're selling out, oh, they had pressure from the label to do this, and whether that's true or not, I think that argument gets overused a lot, because people try to like create like a little narrative in their minds as to why their favorite band sounds different than than what they want it to be, and rather than just saying, oh, I like this and I don't like that, it's like they have to try and make some sort of conspiracy out of it, like as if they didn't make the record they wanted to make, and that always was a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like, labels really don't have that kind of influence, and if a band is like believes so wholeheartedly in what they're doing that they're willing to lose a record deal for it, which most artists are, they're just going to do what they want to do. Especially a band like Linkin Park, who they can literally do whatever they want to do. If they want to put,
nowadays.
They can put out the record on their own. They don't need a record label. Like,
well, and how much of the opinion popularly was expressed by the social media paparazzi, who really has less knowledge than the three of us or four of us do, when it comes to these matters. I mean, there are so many armchair quarterbacks out there who are just willing to foam at the mouth for no particular reason other than create controversy. And I think he was more reacting to that than people who may have been longtime fans that were slightly disappointed that they made a drastic turn in their opinion. I think he was more lashing out at the people who were just clueless, and there are a lot of them on the internet. Trust me.
Yeah, there are.
Also, just from a kind of a fun perspective, like I listened to the whole album today. One More Light. It's good. Like, there's a lot of good stuff on there. Like Halfway Right's a good song. Let's see, which one? Sharp Edges, the last one on the album, is solid too. Like, I don't know why people have. I mean, yes, it's different, but it's good. Like, it's good music.
It's still the band being who they want to be, and I think that's what fans have to remember. It's the band being themselves.
I haven't gotten the chance to listen to the new album, but I know the one they put out before this, The Hunting Party, was like some of the heaviest stuff they've done in their career.
That was amazing too.
Listen to Guilty All the Same. That song is just a banger.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and going back to their roots too, having an R&B artist in there, doing
it was Rakim, I think.
Yeah, Rakim. Yeah, that actually brought back 2000s Linkin Park.
Yeah.
So you're right. They did what they wanted to do, and like I myself haven't listened to the entire of the album, but I can imagine why people would think what they thought, because just the opinions I've read on it have kind of led me to believe that this is actually a different version of Linkin Park that nobody expected, because they think, oh, well, if Hunting Party was kind of a turn back to some of the heavier stuff, then the next album will be the same way, right? right? And that wasn't
Right.
the case.
Yeah. I mean, they've always been a band that has taken risks, so I'm surprised that so many people were shocked, really, quite frankly. But I mean, again, this is one of those things we could talk and speculate about for hours. I'm really glad that the three of you guys decided to join me tonight, and hopefully just kind of speak your mind and air your feelings, and hopefully everyone listening will kind of get to sort of experience that through us. I know definitely before we go tonight, I definitely would like to share, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to share my history with Linkin Park and kind of tell you what they mean to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went to high school from 99 through 2003, which is like right at the beginning of their heyday. Before I listened to Hybrid Theory, and I was the kind of kid who I was very stubborn and set in my ways as far as like my opinions on things regarding to music, meaning that like I was such a rock guy at that point. Like I didn't want anything to do with hip hop or rap music at all. Like I was completely against it, and I had kind of resented bands like Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit that were around and they were popular and they were doing that, because I was like, what are you guys doing? You should be singing. And even like Rage Against the Machine before that, which like I didn't really fully appreciate. When I first heard Hybrid Theory, I think a friend of mine burned it for me, and it's like, hey, check this out. You might like it. I think maybe because they were as earnest as they were, and that they were fusing, just great musicianship, along with, yes, there was hip hop elements in there, but there were also techno elements and hard rock and metal and stuff like that, which I don't know what it was necessarily, but me listening to this album and appreciating for what it was, that made me change my perspective on things that had come before, meaning that it allowed me to open myself up to bands that I would never have given a chance before, like your Kid Rocks and Limp Bizkits and stuff, and go back and listen to them and appreciate them for what they were. And then from there, I was able to follow their career and appreciate Linkin Park for everything that they did going forward. Minutes to Midnight, certainly was a huge turning point for me. And recognizing that Chester was just such an amazing vocalist, and getting the chance to see them live over the years, people, had taken a look at some of the more techno elements, and were like, well, can they get and people would be like, can these guys really get it done live? And I was there from the, in their early days seeing them live, and I'm like, yeah, they could get it done. And it's just, that was my experience listening to Linkin Park over the years. I would go so far as to say is that they made me not just a better musician and a better music fan, but probably a better person, and probably a more open-minded person for going back and exploring these things. And there aren't many bands I can say that have allowed me to change my perspective on an entire genre, and I would put Linkin Park as one of those bands for me. So, with all that being said, what this remains for the future of Linkin Park, it's too early to tell. I know that there are 5 other very talented guys in that band. What they decide to do going forward, I don't know. I can also tell you that I also definitely want to take the time to say that I was a big fan of of his brief tenure with Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah, even his what was it? Dead by Sunrise.
Dead by
band.
Sunrise. Yes.
That was a great project.
Oh, I love that record. I love stuff like "Give Me Your Name."
Yeah.
A lot of great songs off that record as well, which is essentially like a solo record because he wrote a lot of it himself.
Yep.
So "Dead by Sunrise" was another short-lived project of his, but was just fantastic as well. It's surreal to think that both he and Scott Weiland are gone now.
Yeah.
Like I said, he seemed like one of the nicer guys in the business. Was a genuine person, did everything, I know I said this before, but everything seemed very earnest and genuine, and he also wasn't afraid to express how much of a music fan he was, and I found that really refreshing. He didn't seem to be above it at all to say how much he loved Stone Temple Pilots or how much he loved Metallica or whoever it may have been, and it's just surreal that both he and Chris Cornell and Scott Weiland are gone now because they had collaborated a lot in life. Even if you go back to the Family Values tour from 2000, Chester went up and sang with STP at the time. So you had both Scott and Chester with STP. Those recordings are out there of them singing together. So that's just, it makes it all the more poignant now that this has happened. But like I said, I definitely want to thank the three of you for joining me on this. Seamus, I know you're on Twitter at CelticKraut75.
Yes, sir.
Anything else you'd like to plug at this point?
At this point, no, not a whole lot going on. Just hit me up if you want to talk about movies and stuff.
Absolutely. We're definitely way overdue when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Brian, where can people find you and Sonic Assault online?
Anywhere that we're not. Come listen to us, man. Rock989.com. We are where the internet comes to rock. We play independent, local, unsigned, and unheard of rock, along with the big stuff that you love. Find us on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter at WRRXRock989, and specifically Sonic Assault, their website, sonicassaultradio.com, and on Twitter at Assault Radio. Celebration of Nonsense. We're 110 episodes in. Holy crap, dude.
Jesus.
Nice. That's impressive. I'm slowly trying to catch up to you, so we'll see what we can do. Zakk, certainly a lot of people know about Falling in Reverse. You guys are just out there killing it at pretty much every major rock festival in the country right now.
Yeah.
Certainly. Do you have any other upcoming dates or anything you'd like to promote Falling in Reverse?
We've got a few festival appearances coming up in the fall. I believe we're doing like Louder Than Life and High Elevation and a few others. And we got Rise Above Festival coming up this weekend with Seether. So looking forward to that. And then I'm sure there's some new stuff, new tours or something coming along in the very, very near future.
For sure. Didn't you guys just put out your latest record?
Yeah, we just put out our record Coming Home a couple weeks back, and we just put out a new music video for our single Superhero last week.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, definitely go out and check Falling in Reverse, and of course some of Zakk's past work in Black Tide, one of my favorite bands as well. And,
10-year anniversary next year on Light From Above.
God damn. Yeah. We've watched you grow up right before our eyes.
Yep.
Good stuff, man. Like I said, definitely check out all these guys' stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at JackXConnor. I am now on Instagram at JackXConnor as well. I just finally joined that. I know I'm a little late to the Instagram party, but I'm there. You can check me out on Facebook at facebook.com/JackConnorMusic. You can check out my band at www.vertebreaker.net and at facebook.com/vertebreakerband. Go back and like this episode and go back and listen to all the other ones. We cover music, movies, pro wrestling, a lot of different topics, whatever happens to be on my mind. And yes, thank you all for listening. Hopefully the next episode will be a lot happier and on a much brighter note. Hopefully I can get some of you guys back on under better circumstances. Zakk, I would love to hear some more of your latest experiences being back on the road. And, definitely I'd like to get a proper interview with you, Brian. And Seamus, you're always part of the crew pretty much. So
also, I just want to say I know this episode kind of had a downer feel, but it was an honor hearing you guys. I know you guys are big into the music business. It was really cool hearing you guys talk about the music business. That I personally enjoyed that. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you, man.
Rad, man. Thanks.
Well, anytime. And like I said, this is a conversation between friends here. And Seamus, certainly your opinion is valid as well because you're a fan. You're the kind of person that guys like Zakk and I practice and play in bands for. So we appreciate your support as well.
What am I, chopped liver? No.
I will definitely be checking. And honestly,
Brian,
I will definitely be checking out Falling in Reverse too.
Awesome.
Get in touch with me, man. I would love to hear you guys' stuff. And
definitely.
Jack will tell you. We'll put it on the station. No questions asked.
Sounds good.
For sure. Every little bit helps, no doubt.
Yep.
Anyways, that was it for the Phoenix Report. I am Jack Connor. We'll see you guys again soon. And by all means, if anyone out there is struggling or feeling bad, just keep on smiling, and don't hesitate to talk to somebody, because your problems, no matter how bad you think they are, you won't be bringing anyone else down with you. It's okay to talk to people about it. You can, and if you don't know anyone, contact us, or contact somebody. But there's always someone to talk to. There's always a better answer out there. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and it's definitely not the way to go. So, if anything, hopefully we can all learn from this. So thank you guys for tuning in. This has been the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor. We'll see you guys again. Bye.